Hey guys, before we get into this week's episode, I just wanted to say a few things. I know that this week's episode is long, but it was really hard to cut down, and I think after you listen to it, you'll really understand why. Also, this episode can be a tough listen. It's about Dr. Edith Eger's survival of the Holocaust, and I don't hold back on discussing her experiences because I think it's really important. So please listen with care. And lastly, I wanted to start reading some of the amazing reviews that are coming our way. This one is on Apple Podcasts, and the username is Great for Reposting. And the title of the review is Loved the Episode. I really enjoyed this and I'm looking forward to more. Great combination of reviewing the book and the sharing of personal stories between Alex and her guest. Thank you, Great for Reposting. I appreciate your feedback, and I'll continue sharing these great reviews as we get them. Okay, it's time for the episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Babes in Bookland. I'm your host, Alex Franca, and today I am discussing The Choice, Embrace the Possible by Dr. Edith Eva Eger with my friend Colette. Welcome. Hi, Colette.
Hey, so nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for discussing this very heartbreaking and important book. And thank you so much for recommending it to me. This book tore me open and transformed me in a way that I was not expecting. And you didn't tell me anything about it.
Yeah, I guess I should have given you a little heads up about, how heart-wrenching it would be. But no, I mean, when you told me about the podcast, I was like, whoa, I literally just finished this book. And if you haven't read it, you have to read it because it tore me up just the same. And I didn't really know exactly what I would be getting myself into, except for that it was a book that touched on the Holocaust. It exceeded kind of what I thought it would. I think I really needed that book when I read it.
It's a very interesting memoir because it is truly one of the most crushing stories that I've ever read. Yet you leave the book feeling like you know how to live your life better because of her journey and her teachings.
Yes.
Long story short, and we're going to get into the long story, but she is a Holocaust survivor and she ends up, after many years, becoming a therapist and developing her own school of thought in therapy after studying many other schools of thought. And so she not only tells us her life story, but also pairs it with examples of her relationships and her instances with her patients and how we can maybe apply that to our own lives. It's kind of like getting a couple of mini therapy sessions via other people's therapy sessions.
Totally.
I've just never read something that made me feel such a wide variety of feelings in such a short sitting because I was so enamored by her. I wanted to learn everything that I could about her. I couldn't put the book down except to grab a tissue and, sob for a few minutes and then pick it back up and keep going. It's just so inspiring how someone who has gone through truly one of the darkest things that people can experience chooses to be so full of light. And that's really what the book is about.
The choice that we all have to choose light over dark. I know. I mean, that's something that has always really inspired me to get out of my own darkness. Cause that's the thing too, is because she's a therapist and I'm a therapist, this book really showed me that and reminded me. And it's something that I kind of feel a lot of times when I'm sitting in the room with clients that pain is pain. Even if we don't have the same story in life and we've gone through different painful events, pain is pain. And just the common humanity that we all share is so needed, I want to say, in this world, and feeling seen and feeling heard. I mean, that was really the big part of this book for me, is her ability to describe her deepest suffering and darkest thing that happened in history, that she basically found a way to not become bitter from it and not become hateful or spiteful or even mistrusting, I would say, which is so wow.
But it was a journey and she takes us through that journey. It's not hi, I'm Mary Sunshine and I lost my parents in the Holocaust, but guess what? I look on the bright side. Like, no, it got
Yes.
messy and hard, and she ran away
Yes.
from it for so long.
Yes. Yes.
And so you see yourself in her in that way. It wasn't easy for her, and she doesn't say it's easy, but
Totally.
it's worth it.
Totally, totally. There was this one quote, let's see, it was something along the lines of that healing isn't linear. And
Yes, I wrote that
oh,
down.
nice, nice.
No one heals in a straight line.
Thank you. That's it. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so true. Like, when has our journeys ever been a straight line and just like a straight shot up? No, it's like full of just up and down. And we take one step forward, three steps backwards. And that's all of us. And to expect anything different is like just not, realistic. And like, just the self-acceptance piece in that, the fact that she humbled herself so much in the book, it just reminded me that like you can be a really skilled, sophisticated clinician and have so much of your own like turmoil going on deep inside. I love the honesty around that.
Yeah, I agree. Her book was very honest and very vulnerable. And I feel so grateful to her for sharing her story and her journey. So let's really get into The Choice by Dr. Edith Eger. It was published in 2017, and this is the dedication. For the 5 generations of my family, my father, Lajos, who taught me to laugh, my mother, Ilona, who helped me find what I needed inside, my gorgeous and unbelievable sisters, Magda and Clara, my children, Marianne, Audrey, and John, and their children, Lindsay, Jordan, Rachel, David, and Ashley, and their children's children, Silas, Graham, and Hale. It felt like such a poignant dedication because Hitler's entire dream was to eradicate the Jewish people. But it's like, sorry, here they are. Like, you didn't win. Goodness prevailed through a lot of hurt and death. But here are the generations that keep going. And I love that she did that. Like, I got chills the first time and it's like, it just kept going on. I loved it. Okay, so I like to start all of the episodes with quick topics. And we're going to do most of the quick topics a little bit differently today because you're going to be my quick topic. But I also like to start my quick topics with new words that I've discovered as I read the memoirs. And in her memoir, I came up with one, castigate, which means reprimand severely. And I actually will quote the part of the book that uses this word later. That's my only quick topic related to her memoir because Colette, as you mentioned earlier, you are a therapist. And so I want to just share a little bit more about you with our listeners. What have you learned about yourself through your work?
Wow, this has been a lot. Short answer, a lot. But yeah, no, I mean, I definitely came, especially as an early therapist, wanting to do a good job and coming from a background where my role in my own family was always to be a good girl. I think the desire to please has definitely been one of the biggest learnings for me, is to just be authentically myself. And if someone's down for the ride, great. And if not, then that's okay too. And like, not really taking that too much to heart or too personally, because I've just learned to like appreciate the fact that I'm a delicate person. I know how to be very soft, very kind, very compassionate, have a lot of empathy. And I also know how to challenge my clients. And I think it's been great to watch myself be able to not really worry if someone's going to be upset or mad, and just trust my gut and be really authentic. That's been one of the best lessons.
Your clients are so lucky to have you. Therapy is such a special tool and it can feel out of reach for people. It's hard for somebody to spend time on themselves because it just feels like there's so much other things that like have to get done. Do you have any piece of advice or anything that you would say to somebody who's kind of in that place? Like, it's expensive. I don't know if I'm worth the time and the money.
Yeah. Number one, like I used to work at a community clinic, which was wonderful. And those are readily available across all cities, really. And now with Zoom being an option, I feel like it's even more accessible. So there's a ton of sliding scale clinics that are just what we would call like a community clinic. And it would be interns working under the supervision of a licensed clinician. The other thing too is like most therapists, including myself, will designate some spots for sliding scale clients that can't afford the full fee of therapy, which can definitely get pricey. So there's that.
Great. People might not know that.
Kind of try to steer away from memes or like Instagram therapy.
Yeah.
Even though it can feel tempting to want to diagnose ourselves, through those channels.
This is something that it's important. You're important and you deserve to be able to work on yourself and move past your trauma. And sometimes you need help.
Yeah. You don't even know how deep your fullest potential can be until you allow yourself to kind of go deeper and look at that and look at yourself in different ways. And I think it can be really invaluable. And whenever I have someone who's unsure, the thing that I see the most is just a lot of benefits and not a lot of risks.
Yeah, that's true. Well, speaking of diving deeper, let's really get into Dr. Eger's story. Typically, I refer to my memoirists by their first name. Edith. I think I'll just go with Edith. Is that rude? Should I call her Edith or should I call her Dr. Eger?
I think you can call her Edith. She calls herself Eddie a lot in the book too, so I don't think she cares.
Okay, cool. Okay. As we've already talked about, this is a story of Holocaust survival. Edith writes, "Memory is a sacred ground, but it's haunted too. It's the place where my rage and guilt and grief go circling like hungry birds, scavenging the same old bones. It's the place where I go searching for the answer to the unanswerable question. Why did I survive? It took me many decades to discover that I could come to my life with a different question. Not why did I live, but what is mine to do with the life I've been given?"
Wow.
Her life before the concentration camps, she writes, "Our childhood memories are often fragments, brief moments or encounters, which together form the scrapbook of our life. They are all we have left to understand the story we have come to tell ourselves about who we are." Which I thought was such an interesting way to put it, because you come to a point in your life where when you look back, you start to realize that your memory is narrowed through your own scope of what your reality was at that time. And it's been proven, right? You hear stories of people having completely different recollections of the same event. It's just, for me, it's such a reminder that there's always work to be done in letting go of things that were out of your control as a child, things that you were taught as a child that don't serve you anymore.
I think we all kind of inherit some of those things from childhood that as we get older, we're like, oh no, like, wait, I don't want to carry that anymore. Or I don't want to do what was done to me as a kid. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah. And the first step is recognizing it, but it's hard to shake some of those habits and those thoughts.
She did such a nice job, I thought, in this book of making both her mom and her dad to be very human, not black or white, but just very flawed. And yet her love for them was very strong. The way she described their quirks were like with her mom, like her mom could be really critical at times and like kind of mean.
Right. She grew up with two sisters, Magda and Clara, and Magda was the pretty one, and Clara was the violin prodigy. Edith writes that her family calls her Detsuka. And so she would say, "Detsuka, it's a good thing you're so smart because you're not pretty."
Yeah, like pretty gnarly.
But it is really interesting how, as children, we try to find our place, our box within the family. What do we check off? What is our place here? Sometimes your parents spell it out for you easily, like in Edith's case, but they were very close. They were very close. And Edith enjoys gymnastics. She's also a ballet dancer. And she understood that her parents had a marriage of convenience, not the crazy romantic love that she wanted. She writes, "What we call love is often something more conditional, the reward for performance, what you settle for."
You really feel her yearning to do it differently with more passion than the way that she saw growing up. Like even the way she describes her dancing, I'm always like, wow, you could feel just this life force inside of her, even though she was like really small, right? Kind of like
Scrawny.
Yeah. And yet inside she was bold and full of life. I want to celebrate life and enjoy life for all it's worth, you know?
Exactly. I completely agree. She writes about her hometown. The creation of Czechoslovakia changed her hometown of Kassa, Hungary, to Kosice, Czechoslovakia, and her family became double minorities. They were ethnically Hungarian that lived in this now predominantly Czech country, and they were also Jewish. She writes, anti-Semitism wasn't a Nazi invention. Growing up, I internalized a sense of inferiority and the belief that it was safer not to admit that I was Jewish, that it was safer to assimilate, to blend in, to never stand out. Then in 1938, Hungary annexed Kosice again, and it felt like home had become home. In 1938, tensions are growing. That's the year that Nazi Germany invaded Poland, and the Hungarian Nazis, called Nailas.
That sounds very right. Yes.
They move into the apartment below Edith's family and then later evict them. Many Jewish people have started to flee, including Edith's aunt, who had moved to America years before, but her family doesn't flee. In 1940, Jewish men in the town are being rounded up and sent to concentration camps, but they don't come for her father yet. She writes, we used denial as protection. If we don't pay attention, then we can continue our lives unnoticed. We can make the world safe in our minds. We can make ourselves invisible to harm. And this quote stopped me because with so much of what's going on in our world today, even narrowed down to in our own lives, the things that we choose to ignore that are still hurting us can be really scary to open up your eyes to.
Yes.
Various things.
Sometimes it's easier to live with those blinders, right?
Yeah, but unfortunately,
with a price.
The danger doesn't go
with
away.
A big price.
Right. I feel like in our country for so long, even as women, right, with the overturning of Roe versus Wade, there was such this feeling that would never happen. That would never happen. And then it did.
Right.
And now we're having to pay the consequences. And so
right.
It's like, what else can we open our eyes to and be proactive about? Climate change. We cannot just continue to ignore and hope that it goes away. Like we have to take action. It is affecting us, whether we believe it or not. It's affecting us and it's affecting the people we love. Then, of course, deciding what to do is a whole nother step.
Totally.
There's a safety in ignorance, but we just can't afford to be ignorant anymore.
It's so amazing how many times in history we just learned that looking away can just lead to like the worst things happening.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's like right under our noses the whole time. It's not the boogeyman in the closet. It's like the thing that, is in front of us.
Just open your eyes.
Yeah.
Around this time, 1940, she and all the other Jewish people are made to wear the yellow star that signals she is Jewish, but the war is still elsewhere to them, so they can ignore it. And she does. She falls in love with a boy named Eric. She writes, our relationship is like a bridge we can cross from present worries to future joys, plans, passion, promise. She's still a child, she's like 14, 15. It's really not her job to worry about these things. This is very much an adult responsibility. And so you see her cling to the things that give her hope. And she talks about the plans that she and Eric would make. Even later, when she's in the concentration camp, her plans, her future with Eric, that's one thing that keeps her going through so much of it. Hope is a very necessary thing.
It's essential, I think. I think it's what helped her survive in the book when she talks about like that death march and how she was like a handful of people that even made it. I'm like, man, the thing that kept her going, and Viktor Frankl talks about this too, is like that hope. And how like that unwavering hope that like there's got to be something better on the other side of this crazy thing that's happening.
This nightmare, this hell on earth.
Hell, yeah, hell. It can't be. And she'll talk about those like moments of humanity that she has with people. So those like glimpses of like goodness.
So how would you, Colette, if somebody came to you and said, I have no hope, what is there any advice that you would give them? How would you ignite hope within someone who's lost it? I know each case is so specific, but
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely in the more like depression realm of things, things can start to feel and look like everything is negative and like you're just kind of living under this dark cloud and you don't know how to get out of it. So I think you start with really simple things. Pattern disruption is really important when you find yourself in like a stuck place. Something as simple as brushing your teeth with the opposite hand that you normally brush your teeth with. If the brain is in like a stuck place of depression, hopelessness, lack of motivation, it's really important to like wake up the brain because the brain needs to be woken up.
okay.
Pattern disruption is something we talk about a lot. So a lot of novelty, freshness is really good for the brain. Wearing something that you would never wear before, trying a recipe or eating something that you would normally not eat. Really waking up those neural pathways in the brain to something new and novel helps get us out of these like down, depressive, hopeless states.
That's really, really cool. I've never heard somebody articulate it in such a simple and easy to follow way. And it seems really doable. It's like, oh, just brush my teeth with my left hand. Oh, try this different flavor of ice cream, even.
Yeah.
These things you can do, you can do them.
Yeah, totally. Because a lot of times things just feel so overwhelming. Like when we find ourselves in like rough spots in our lives, it feels like we have to find a resolution or solution right away. And it's really starting really small and then building off of that.
That's so important to know because you're right. It does feel like you have to have this huge transformation like so quickly, but everything starts with just one little change.
Mm-hmm.
So back to Edith, her father does get taken to a forced labor camp. One day, Edith comes home and he's just not there. But Magda is able to visit him, and later he is able to come home. They release him for Passover. That's what they tell him. Clara doesn't come home for the holiday. She is studying in Budapest, and her professor won't allow her because he received news that the Jews would start being taken away in the morning. Alona, Edith's mom, discovers this news because she traveled to the consulate and she comes home to tell them. And Edith's dad is like, "Why did you come back here?" Basically saying that she should have left and gone to Budapest and saved herself. And Alona says that she couldn't leave the rest of the family behind. Edith writes, "Later I'll learn this isn't just their usual quarreling, that there's a history and a weight to the dispute that they're having now. There are the tickets to America my father turned away. There's the Hungarian official who approached my mother with fake papers for the whole family, urging us to flee. Later we learned that they both had a chance to choose differently. Now they suffer with their regret, and they cover their regret in blame." Oh, here it comes. I'm starting to get emotional. I knew I would. I can't imagine being in that position as a parent. To feel like you've potentially failed your family. She wanted to go back to them and get through whatever came next together as a family unit, however they could. But it is heartbreaking to realize that they had an opportunity to flee. That night, they are taken away. As they sit in the wagon waiting for what's next, Edith writes, "In my catalog of regrets, this one shines bright, that I didn't reach for my sister's hand."
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I do want to let the listeners know that both Edith and Magda do survive the Holocaust, as well as their sister Clara, but their parents do not. She gives a crushing account of the way that she and the others are treated as they're first being taken to a factory. So they're rounded up in the town and they're brought to a factory there. There's no food. Women are crying because they're babies who need milk. And their milk is drying up. She searches for her grandparents, but she can't find them. She can't find Eric and his family. They hear rumors about an internment camp where they will be taken to work and live out the war with their families. That's what they're being told. When her section of the factory is evacuated, she's piled into a truck. And just before it pulls away, she hears Eric's voice. He tells her that he'll never forget her eyes or her hands. And she has this mantra in her head: if I survive today, tomorrow I'll be free. And she repeats this over and over throughout the memoir and throughout her time during the Holocaust. The truck takes them to a train where they are stacked on top of one another like cattle. There's one loaf of bread for 8 people to share, one bucket of water, one bucket for waste. People die along the way. And she elaborates on all of this in the book. And if we had time, I would read every single detail of this because I think it's really important. And I think the details matter. And the people who survived and didn't survive this atrocity matter. And when we forget how horribly innocent people were treated, how inexcusably evil this entire thing was, I think we fail the people who went through this, whether they survived or not.
Thank you for what you just said. Thank you for honoring this book so beautifully.
Oh,
seriously.
thank you.
No, I like, it's like touching me right now, just hearing your ability to speak to what happened and the people who, and you're not Jewish. And I just appreciate that. So thank you.
Well, of course, I'm so thankful that she wrote this book and she told her story, and other people like Viktor Frankl told their story. It's really important. I honestly think this should be like required reading. Okay, so before we discuss Edith's experience at Auschwitz and the hell after, because she is not free. She is not set free after. So I wanted to share this statistic from the National www2museum.org. The Holocaust was Nazi Germany's deliberate, organized, state-sponsored persecution and machine-like murder of approximately 6 million European Jews and at least 5 million prisoners of war. Holocaust is a word of Greek origin. It means burnt offering.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either, which is even more horrifying, if you can even get more horrifying than it already is.
Right.
Like I said earlier, Edith does not hold back in her writing about what happened to her and her family. Her parents are both sent to the gas chamber, along with children under 14 and adults over 40. That is a very narrow window of ages. And Viktor Frankl was actually 39. And that's why he was sent into the camp instead of to the gas chamber. So Magda and Edith go into the camp. I want to discuss a few key moments during her time at Auschwitz and the other places that she was forced to go, all the while with Magda at her side. Like I said, that they survive, they are reunited with Clara after, but truly they lose everything. They go through hell, but the sparks of beauty and hope that you spoke about, Colette, that's what Edith is able to cling to. And that's what is incredibly inspiring about her story. She writes about how when Magda was forced to cut off all of her hair. They were all forced to cut off their hair and shave their heads. This was a very important part of Magda's identity. She was the pretty one, right?
Yes. Yes.
And she turns to Edith and she asks her how she looks. Edith writes, I gaze into her fierce blue eyes and think that even for her to ask the question, how do I look, is the bravest thing I've ever heard. There aren't mirrors here. She's asking me to help her find and face herself. And so I tell her the one true thing that's mine to say. Your eyes, I tell my sister, they're so beautiful. I never noticed them when they were covered up by all that hair. It's the first time I see we have a choice to pay attention to what we've lost or to pay attention to what we still have.
Oh, that just gives me the chills from the top of my head to my toes.
Yeah. There is a man, he was the well-known figure during this time, the angel of death, Dr. Mengele. He decides who lives and who gets into the gas chamber. And he comes into the little room, for lack of a better word, that Edith and her sister are bunking in. And he demands that Edith dance for him. She does. And she writes about literally dancing for her life. She writes, as I dance, I discover a piece of wisdom that I have never forgotten. I will never know what miracle of grace allows me this insight. It will save my life many times, even after the horror is over. I can see that Dr. Mengele, the seasoned killer who just this morning murdered my mother, is more pitiful than me. I am free in my mind, which he can never be. Which, at this point, she's 16. She really has such a depth to her soul, I feel.
When you think about her spirit and how strong her spirit was, it really is truly hard to comprehend. It's hard for me to even wrap my mind around it.
I agree. She just continues to inspire me to think differently, to focus on the choices that I make day to day and how I choose to move forward in the world. Because she just shows you how she did it.
Even just to recognize in that moment that her sister needed something, and her sister needed something in that moment to not bear the burden of like, okay, I'm just like another like dehumanized like person in this crazy evil thing. I think she was the younger sister, right? And she was so connected to each person in her family in such a way. She always like wanted to, I mean, probably why she became a therapist, but like she knew that she could do something to help them connect to the goodness that was still left, even though there was barely any left over.
Yeah.
And it was like she had that amazing ability to like find something to hang on to. And it's like, you know, Magda, your eyes, they're beautiful. I don't know. It's just unbelievable.
Really, really is. After she dances, he rewards her with a loaf of bread and she shares it with her sister and her bunkmates, and she feels grateful to be alive. In 1944, she and Magda are evacuated from Auschwitz as Poland and the Americans close in. First, they are taken to a children's summer camp where they work in a nearby thread factory. And she writes about how their hands were bloodied by the machines, how they survived on potatoes and their skins. Edith writes, "We've escaped the gas chamber, but we'll die eating potato peels," someone says. And we laugh from a deep place in us that we didn't know still existed. We laugh, as I did every week at Auschwitz when we were forced to donate our blood for the transfusions for wounded German soldiers.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
I know. I couldn't defy my oppressors with a gun or a fist, but I could find my way to my own power. And there's a power in our laughter now.
Wow.
Okay, and you said, wow, can we just take a moment? The cognitive dissonance that must have been going on to feel like a group of people are so beneath you, so unhuman, so they're vermin, right? But yet you will take their blood and put it into the bodies of your precious German soldiers.
Crazy.
It really, that was crazy. I had no idea that that was going on until I read the memoir.
That after everything, the Jews were also donating blood to the soldiers that were killing them. Just having a hard time with that one.
Yes. You can't make sense of it because
there's no making sense. But that's the thing that she kept speaking to in this whole book, was how our power is within ourselves. And someone can try to take it from us, but we can retain that power of like choice that she keeps talking about. I mean, that's what her book is about. I mean, how else do you survive?
Right. How else do you survive? And I love that she brought up the laughter that they found, because there is a power in laughter.
Immense.
You can never control what happens to you in this life. All you can control is how you respond to it. Her entire teaching is basically that. It's your choice to respond to something in a more positive way that's more positive for you, that's helpful to you, as opposed to a quote unquote negative way, right? Growing bitter, growing hateful. So after a few weeks of being at this new place, this factory, they're put on another train and it's bombed, allowing Edith a chance to escape. But she can't find Magda and she won't leave without her sister. Magda tells her that she should have run, but Edith writes that Magda was her guiding star. And as long as she was near, she had everything she needed.
Wow. Yeah.
Later, Edith is terribly sick, suffering from a horrible fever and infection. There's another bombing nearby. This time, Magda has the chance to run, and she doesn't. And she's been kind of keeping Edith hidden because they were shooting girls that were sick and unable to work. She would have been executed had Magda not hidden her. They're made to march endlessly. During a stop to sleep, there's no food for another X amount of days in a row. And Edith sneaks out to get food and is caught by a guard, cocks his gun as if to shoot her, but instead just pushes her back into the building, but not before she was able to grab some small carrots to bring to her sister. She writes, "The carrots are proof of a secret power. I shouldn't have risked picking them, but I did. I shouldn't have survived, but I did. The shoulds aren't important. We are so sick and undernourished that we can barely walk, much less march, much less work. And yet the carrots made me feel strong. If I survive today, tomorrow I will be free." I sing the chant in my head. Wow. The guard from the previous night comes into the room looking for her the next morning, asking for the little criminal, and she's certain that she's going to get executed. But instead, he tosses her a loaf of rye bread. She writes, he said, "You must be very hungry to do what you did. I wish I could meet that man now. He's proof that 12 years of Hitler's Reich isn't enough hate to take the good out of people."
Wow.
You know, you brought up earlier that there were these little literal carrots of hope that were able to keep her going. So they continue this march to Mauthausen. She writes, it's an all-male concentration camp at a quarry where prisoners are made to hack and carry granite that will be used to build Hitler's fantasy city. I see nothing but stairs and bodies. The stairs are white stone and stretch up and up ahead of us as though we could walk them to the sky. The bodies are everywhere, in heaps, bodies crooked and splayed like pieces of broken fence, bodies so skeletal and disfigured and tangled that they barely have a human shape. We stand in a line on the white stairs, the stairs of death, they are called. They're told that they're going to die in the morning, and Edith watches the smoke rise from a nearby crematorium. She writes about how she doesn't want her last thoughts to be angry or despondent, so she thinks of Eric and their love. She thinks of how she's going to die a virgin, and it was such like an innocent.
Totally.
It reminded you she is still
So
just
young.
a child in all of this, so young. And to have the thought of like, oh, I'm never going to know a man's loving touch. And she writes about how she thinks about all she's lost and also all that she's going to lose out on. All around her, everyone, her sister, the others, they've lost their faith, refusing to believe in a God who could let something like this happen. She writes, and yet I never found it difficult to see that it isn't God who is killing us in gas chambers, in ditches, on cliff sides, on 186 white stairs. God doesn't run the death camps. People do. I picture God as being like a dancing child, sprightly and innocent and curious. I must also be if I am close to God now. I want to keep alive that part of me that feels wonder, that wonders until the very end. It is really hard to come to terms with faith when forced to see these horrible acts committed by humans. I don't know. I think honestly, it is something that I still struggle with.
I guess she kept choosing to believe in something bigger than just the evil, bigger than just herself. I work a lot with people in addiction, substance use, and a lot of what gets talked about in AA is just like a higher power, and it doesn't have to be God. It can just be like a higher power, like even the universe. And I do see a lot of benefit in believing in something bigger than just ourselves. So whether that's God or something else, I think there's a lot that we can get out of that. And certainly when someone is going through something, you could either choose to desert your belief in God, or you could choose to like really double down and pray. And, so it's such an individual choice what we make or what we do with that. And I don't think anything is right or wrong. It's just what we choose. But I don't know how she kept that alive for herself. I really don't, because I haven't gone through what she went through in her life, but I've struggled with that doubt in my mind. And I know a lot of people do. I don't know. I don't know how she went through what she went through and still kept that going. I don't know. I really don't.
Me neither. Me neither. Again, it just feels like she's so incredibly special, and it's so valuable that she has shared her story and her gift with the world so that we can, even if we gain like one tiny ounce of different perspective or different way of thinking from reading this book, she's changing so many people for the better who get access to her story. Okay, so her story continues somehow, inexplicably. They aren't sent to their deaths there. They're told to march again. She writes, we are so weakened by then that only 100 out of the 2,000 of us left will survive. Magda and I cling to each other, determined to stay together, to stay upright. Every part of me is in pain. Every part of me is numb. I can't walk another step. I ache so badly, I can't feel myself move. I don't know that I have stumbled until I feel the arms of Magda and the other girls lifting me. They have laced their fingers together to form a human chair. You shared your bread, one of them says. To think of all of these young women, these girls really banding together when they can barely walk themselves to lift this other girl.
What an image.
It's just incredibly moving and incredibly beautiful. They arrive at Gunskirchen. This is not a death camp, but still a place where everyone is dying because at this point they're ravaged by infections. They have open sores. There is no food. They're starving. Edith is unable to walk. She's actually broken her back, but she doesn't know it at this point. She writes about sleeping most of the time. But when she's awake, she's in and out of lucidity. And at one point, Magda has gotten a can of sardines from the Red Cross because they've been able to deliver aid somehow, or sort of aid, because Magda and Edith can't open the can. They don't have a can opener. She writes, even a good intention, a good deed becomes futility. My sister is dying slowly of starvation. My sister holds food in her hands. She clutches the tin the way she clutched her hair once, trying to hold on to herself. We are the dead and the near dead. I can't tell which I am. She's unsure how much time passes, but suddenly American soldiers are there. She and Magda are too weak to use their voices or raise their hands when called out to, so they are mistaken for dead. They're just basically piled up. She's under some people who have died. She's on top of some people. Edith writes, the soldiers are leaving, but somehow the light reflects off of the sardine can that Magda is holding. And when they turn back to them, Edith writes about dancing in her mind, making her body be seen. And I can only imagine that somehow she is able to twitch or move or something because she gets their attention and she and Magda are taken out of the rotting pile of dead bodies and put together on the grass. She writes, we have survived the final selection. We are alive. We are together. We are free. So that's her story of surviving the physical violence and toll of the Holocaust. But as we both know, and as our listeners can expect, her survival story doesn't end there. The soldiers take Magda and Edith to Austria. She writes, no one wants us. Hitler has been dead for less than a week. Germany is still days away from official surrender. The violence is waning across Europe, but it is still wartime. And we survivors, we former captives, are still the enemy to some. Parasites, vermin. The war does not end anti-Semitism.
You know, I grew up in LA, born and raised, so I feel like I was lucky in that I escaped overt. I grew up with lots of Jewish kids around and friends and family, but it was not lost on me that my family reminded me very often. My mom is from Moscow in Russia, and my dad's family is Ukraine. Their story was one of survival in that I do have family that went through the Holocaust, but when they eventually went to Russia and they were living in Russia, they left Russia because they were Jewish, because of anti-Semitism that was like very overt. My grandparents had lost their very prestigious jobs as doctors. Both of them were doctors at a hospital in Ukraine. They basically escaped as refugees. What I was reminded of many times growing up was what they faced and how much hatred they were exposed to and how much they had to hide their Judaism back in Russia and Ukraine. I, in my lifetime, escaped that because I was born in America and in LA and didn't really, luckily, have to go through anything like that. But there were plenty of like stories that I heard and just like the survival that like my family had to endure in order to come here to build a life for me and my sister, to not have to kind of go through what they endured.
They wanted you to know. They didn't hide it from you or keep it from you.
No, on the contrary, it was something that they felt they had to share, I think. I mean, I'm so grateful that they did, because I don't think I would really have a concept of how brutal life was for Jews even after the Holocaust had ended.
I think that there is a misconception that the Holocaust was over and all the Jewish people just got to go back to their homes and everything was fine, the ones that survived. And that's just so not the case. Everything was taken from people. Everything.
Yeah.
And so many of them immigrate to other countries in order to flee continuing hostility.
Right.
But like your grandparents, so many people held prestigious job titles, doctors, lawyers, and then they came to America and those credentials didn't cross over.
My grandpa, he was a cardiologist. My grandma was like a general doctor. But what happened was it was communist Russia. And basically all of anything valuable, they had to leave. They couldn't come with any money. They had to give that over to the government. That was how it worked back then. The government made it so hard for people to leave, especially Jews to leave. So, they had to leave everything. Definitely the credentials didn't transfer, but every penny didn't transfer either. I think what ended up happening was they went through some Jewish refugee program, like a charity organization that basically transported them from Russia. And then they had to make, of course, like multiple stops until they got to America. I think that charity gave them like a few dollars. And then they were just like, good luck. That's it. There wasn't anything else that anyone could really do. So my grandpa was, really smart, educated man. He never picked up the language. He had a really hard time learning the language. And so he could not become a doctor. I know that was like a big shame for him that he couldn't establish himself. And so that really hit him really hard. And he worked, but he worked jobs that he wished he didn't have to work. I don't even remember exactly. It was really tough. But my grandma, she did grasp the English language, and she actually started from scratch, and she became a doctor here at the age of 50 something.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And she kept going until she didn't even want to retire, but she did I think they forced her to, but yeah, she was someone that found a way to build herself back up from scratch.
Wow. That is absolutely incredible, your grandmother's story. So let's get back to Edith and try to see how she attempts to survive. Still not the end of the horror. So she and her sister are taken to a German home, and Edith is placed in a crib because she's so tiny at this point. She's around 70 pounds and her back is broken, so she cannot walk. She writes about being afraid of what has happened, afraid of what could happen. One night, two drunken GIs stumble into her room, and Magda isn't there. One almost rapes her, but I guess in a moment of clarity, the other GI calls her a baby, and so that sobers the would-be assaulter. They leave, but then the one that almost raped her ends up giving her a lot of kindness and a lot of help. So that's very confusing, just the duality of people.
What an image, like her in the crib, 70 pounds. I can't
wrap your head around it.
If you haven't seen the images of the Holocaust, I would implore the listeners to just see. It's something you can't really fathom, I think, until you see the pictures. And again, I know it's not for the faint of heart and it's really hard, but
it's important. You have to open your eyes to it, like we talked about before.
It puts things a little bit more into perspective, how they were so close to death, but yet somehow just inched towards one more breath.
If I survive today, tomorrow I will be free. That was what she kept telling herself. Yeah, completely agree with you. The images are very powerful and very necessary. The emaciation that was happening and just the complete disregard for human life. We have to remember this stuff. We have to keep talking about it.
We do.
So Edith and Magda's recovery, I put that in quotes, is slow because their trauma is very fresh and very deep. They regain a little bit of strength and the use of their bodies over the next month, but they are still haunted. Edith writes, "There are different ways to keep yourself going. I will have to find my own way to live with what happened. I don't know what it is yet. We're free from the death camps, but we must also be free to create, to make a life, to choose. And until we find our freedom too, we're just spinning around in the same endless darkness. Later, there will be doctors to help us repair our physical health, but no one will explain the psychological dimension of recovery. It will be many years before I begin to understand that." She and Magda reunite with Clara, who has returned to Casa. They go back home. Now it's part of Czechoslovakia again. So Clara escaped the war. I'm going to cover a lot of ground here very quickly to get Edith to America. This part of the book is so heartbreaking because it shows how the Jewish people were still being treated. She learns of so many deaths, including Eric's, who died in Auschwitz the day before it was liberated.
Oh my God. Wow, I didn't remember that until just now.
Edith is sent to a tuberculosis hospital. It's going around at the time. Her back is healed, but her doctor thinks that she might have TB because there's a lot of fluid in her lungs. She doesn't, but she stays there for 3 weeks to recover anyways. She meets Bela there, who is recovering from tuberculosis and visits a dying girl he had promised to marry to give her hope to live. They fall into a strange romance.
I felt for her grief around having to let go of the idea of Eric ever being. Yeah, I totally felt felt what you're sharing right now. I mean, I definitely felt her hunger to be with someone and experience the sexual part of a relationship and be with a man and be close to a man. But yeah, that innocence and precious love that her and Eric shared, it was a different love, I think, that she chose with Bela.
Yeah, Bela hadn't had to survive the camps. Instead, he had survived in the mountain forest, joining the ranks of Russians to fight the Nazis. She writes, "For this I am grateful. I will never see the imprint of the smokestacks mirrored in his eyes." It is interesting the people that we choose and the reasons why, either consciously or subconsciously.
Yeah, there's a great book called Getting the Love You Want that talks a lot about those unconscious parts of us that are drawn towards or away from people based on like what our own personal history stories are. I'm fascinated by everything to do with that.
Yeah, me too. It's really interesting. Edith writes, "This is how we heal. Yesterday, cannibalism and murder. Yesterday, choosing blades of grass. Today, the antiquated customs and proprieties, the rules and roles that make us feel normal. We will minimize the loss and horror, the terrible interruption of life by living as though it never happened. We will not be a lost generation." I'm sure as you read this, your little therapist flags were going up, being like, ding, 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 you can't live as though something never happened, Edie. But, she comes to that realization.
We all do it. We all try to push away our pain. It would be weird not to do that. But the further we get away from our pain, the further we get away from ourselves. And that can just be so detrimental. I mean, I've had to learn that. Most people I know have had to learn that it's actually through connecting to the pain that helps us heal, not pretending it's not there. Then it'll just come out sideways,
Oh, it'll get you one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bela and Edith marry. She's 19. She writes about how through him, she finds a new appreciation for her body and for life. But the absences at their wedding, their families who were killed, are haunting. She writes, "Later I will hear that we marry our parents, but I say we marry our unfinished business."
I love that.
For Bela and me, our unfinished business is grief.
Wow.
Bela is wealthy. He is in a position of power. His family has wealth. This is very dangerous at this time because he is a Jewish man. Edith gives birth to a daughter. She writes about how, as her body fills out, she remembers that this is what it feels like to be happy, and how much joy and fulfillment that it brings her to be able to breastfeed her daughter until she is full.
Beautiful.
But they christened their daughter as a precaution.
She was so devoted to making sure that her daughter was going to be okay no matter what, and the risks she was willing to take to make sure of that.
Well, it's like she's already lost everything once.
Yeah.
She's not going to do it again.
Right.
It becomes too dangerous for them to stay. So Bela makes arrangements to send a large shipping container to Israel with all the equipment needed to start a new life and a successful life there. And they do have to get there illegally, relying on Brika, which you spoke of, an underground organization that helped your grandparents flee Russia. This is the same situation. They helped Jews flee Europe during the war. So I wonder if your grandparents used this.
Maybe.
Claire and her husband want to move to Australia. Magda is headed for the United States. Edith is having second thoughts about Israel, even though that's where everything is set up for them to have a successful and safe life. That's where their fortune is. She wants to go to America. She has secured the papers to do so without Bela's knowledge. And to her, America is the land of dreams and opportunity, the place her mother whispered about in her ear. Bela does not want to go, but Edith gives him a choice: America with me and your daughter, or Israel alone. Bela chooses them. They have to use an x-ray of Clara's husband's chest to get into the country because Bela would not have been let in with his tuberculosis scars, which I thought was really interesting. I didn't know that part of our history.
Yeah.
She writes, "In America, we'd do as the Americans do," as if I knew a single thing about what Americans do. "I wanted to trust my choice, our new life. So I denied any trace of sadness, any trace of fear. I had escaped, but I wasn't free." So again, she's talking about denying the fear, denying the sadness. Okay, so she's in America, but life is not easy. As we spoke about earlier, It's not easy for immigrants coming over, starting completely fresh. They struggle a lot financially, and they're able to live in one small room together. Bela is resentful and angry, knowing that his fortune is in another country. People are not welcoming. Immigrants are treated with vitriol, like they're a nuisance. And Edith starts having flashbacks to her times at Auschwitz. She writes, I survived by drawing on my inner world. I found hope and faith in life within me, even when I was surrounded by starvation and torture and death. After my first flashback, I began to believe that my inner world was where the demons lived. My inner world was no longer sustaining. It became the source of my pain. I tried to banish memories of the past. I thought it was a matter of survival. Only after many years did I come to understand that running away doesn't heal pain. It only makes it worse.
Mm-hmm.
She continues, this feeling of exile, even in my own community, didn't come from without. It came from within. It was the self-imprisoning part of me that believed I didn't deserve to have survived, that I would never be worthy enough to belong.
Wow.
This is really the big thing that this is the big theme of her memoir, is the way that we imprison ourselves in our minds, coupled with when we refuse to acknowledge, deal with the past and the past trauma.
There's a quote that talk about it a lot with clients. Wherever you go, there you are. Because a lot of people think I'll just move or go somewhere new and start a new life. And it's like, well, sure, you could do that. And then wherever you go, there you are. You still have yourself, and that's what you have to deal with.
Right. You can't outrun yourself.
You can't outrun yourself. That's right.
Sometimes it takes people a while to learn that lesson. I think her hope is by writing this and sharing her story that she can speed up that process for some of us.
Right.
She begins to really reflect on her life. She writes, there is something I need to ask Magda, something that has to do with the cavity in me. But if I ask her about the feet, the emptiness, I must acknowledge it. And I'm so used to pretending it isn't there. Are you happy? I finally work up the courage to ask her. I want her to say that she is, so that I can be too. I want her to say that she'll never be happy, not really, so that I'll know the whole isn't only me. Tishuka, here's some advice from your big sister. Either you're sensitive or you're not. When you're sensitive, you hurt more. Are we going to be okay? I ask. Someday? Yes, she says. No, I don't know. One thing's true. Hitler fucked us up for sure. She knows that Magda went through the same experience as her, obviously in her own way, but she's trying to put feelers out to be like, are you feeling as much pain as I am? I feel like this is the first time that she's really like trying to acknowledge it, trying to do something about it. But then Magda's response is just like,
cover it up.
Yeah, cover it up. Because if you're sensitive, you hurt. Let's just not hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
She and Bela moved to El Paso, and their life is better there. She has a second child, Audrey, a third child, Johnny, who has athetoid cerebral palsy. And she writes about wanting to protect her children from her past, and she struggles to keep her past trauma in the dark. Edith enrolls in college at the age of 32, taking her first psychology class, but she drops out of school to take Johnny to his various specialists. She writes about this heartbreaking time when her daughter Audrey has a friend over. An ambulance goes by, and upon hearing the siren, Audrey grabs her friend and drags her under the bed and says, "We have to hide." And Audrey's friend thought it was a game, but Edith realizes that without meaning to and without conscious awareness, she had taught Audrey that sirens signaled danger. And it was such a poignant example of the way that we pass things on to our children, the way that our parents have passed things on to us. Through our actions, through the things that we don't say.
Yeah, totally. And then the way that her daughter in that example just mirrored it back to her.
She writes, what else are we unconsciously teaching our children about safety, values, and love?
A lot.
I think that's such a really good thing for anybody who has guardianship over a child to reflect on. Okay, so back to Edith. She eventually goes back to school, and a young student asks her if she's a Holocaust survivor. And she writes that she does not know how he knows, but she says yes. And he hands her Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was also a Holocaust survivor, and this book is his story and his grappling with life after. She writes, I am staring directly at the thing I have sought to hide. And as I read, I find I don't feel shut down or trapped, locked back in that place. To my surprise, I don't feel afraid. For every page I read, I want to write 10. What if telling my story could lighten its grip instead of tightening it? What if speaking about the past could heal it instead of calcify it? What if silence and denial aren't the only choices to make in the wake of catastrophic loss? I obviously cannot relate to Edith. And she has a quote at the end that I'm going to get to, and she doesn't want us to compare our trauma and our pain. So I won't do it. But I suffered a miscarriage between my first and my second child, and it was really, really painful. And I went back and forth a lot between talking about it and not talking about it. But I realized that the more that I shared my story, it felt like I was giving parts of my pain away to other people who were willing to accept it. So it's like my pain still exists, but it's like spread out a little bit more. It helped me.
Thank you for sharing, that out loud just now. Cause I think there is some inherent value in speaking our stories out loud to people. Obviously in safe places with safe people, but I think there is real value in that and not carrying it alone.
Yeah.
Also learning about all the people, like, for example, that do suffer miscarriages and just the shared grief in that.
Yeah.
That to me is so much more helpful than keeping it tucked away inside. Like it's like some deep, dark secret that I can't dare to expose to other people because there's something wrong with me. It's like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's not your freaking fault that it happened.
Yeah.
Like,
it is interesting, though, how trauma and shame feel like they go hand in hand when your trauma is not your fault.
Totally. But I think shame breeds itself in secrecy, right? There's also a saying, the secrets keep us sick. I really believe in that. I really believe in that. The secrets keep us sick. Yeah.
In writing more about reading Viktor Frankl's book, she writes, "My heart opens, I weep. It is my mother speaking to me from the page, from the oppressive dark of the train. Just remember, no one can take away from you what you've put in your mind. We can't choose to vanish the dark, but we can choose to kindle the light. I read this, which is at the very heart of Frankl's teaching. Everything can be taken away from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Each moment is a choice. We can always choose how we respond. And I finally begin to understand that I too have a choice. This realization will change my life." You never know where that thing comes from. A random student in a class tells her about this book. In choosing herself and taking the journey to educate herself and take these psychology classes, because she does write about she wanted to understand why people were the way that they were, why people chose one thing and not the other, probably how people were able to fester so much hate in their heart in order to do something as horrific as the Holocaust. We're all trying to figure each other out and figure ourselves out collectively. This book changed everything for her. Now, the first thing that she does is separate from Bela, which part of her journey, she does write about how she needs to explore who she is without him. She writes, "When I met Bela, I wasn't in love. I was hungry."
Yeah.
And it's so funny because you said that earlier. And in my head, you were like, she had a hunger for something. And I was like, oh my gosh, Colette, I'm going to read the quote later. She continues, "And now I was 40 years old, the age my mother had been when she died, and I still hadn't blossomed, still hadn't had the love I thought I was due. I felt cheated, denied of an essential human right, trapped in a marriage that had become a meal consumed with no expectation of nourishment and with no hope of erasing that hunger." She does come to understand that she, I think, put too much weight on Bela, but she, like you talked about, you were able to do the work on yourself so that when you met your husband, you were ready. She didn't do that. She was just trying so hard to live life, to move on with her life. She never took the time to deal with her trauma.
Totally.
And so she's doing that now. She starts corresponding with Viktor Frankl as well, which is so cool. She writes an essay and it's published in like a campus newspaper, and somebody sends it to him and he writes her a letter. I think that is just like the neatest thing. And he becomes her peer and her mentor. And she writes that together we try to answer the questions that ran through our lives. Why did I survive? What is the purpose in my life? What meaning can I make from my suffering? How can I help myself and others to endure the hardest parts of life, to experience more passion and joy? So this also kind of sets her on her course to become a therapist. She is in therapy also, and she begins the work of not pushing her feelings away. And she writes, "This is the gift of my divorce, the recognition that I have to face up to what's inside me. If I'm really doing this to improve my life, it isn't Bella or our relationship that has to change. It's me."
Mm-hmm.
You're always becoming.
Always, always and forever. I think she probably, I mean, I feel like we all have probably done this. I certainly have. But when you like kind of look for your partner to like make you happy because you don't know what that is yourself, your identity, your sense of self is not solid or strong. You don't know who you are without this person. And I mean, I'm a romantic. I love love, all of these things. But like, I know enough to know that if you don't have yourself, then can't have anything else.
You complete me. No, I complete myself,
Yes,
Jerry Maguire.
yes.
And then I choose to walk through life with you.
I love that. But like how many times like women have to get that lesson over and over until
Yeah,
right?
until some people never learn that
And
lesson,
some people never
unfortunately.
do. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, she actually writes inside, I equated the feeling of self-worth and elation with Bella's absence.
Mm,
If I wanted to feel that glow more often, perhaps I needed to be with him less often. Like again,
mm,
she's making it about him instead of making it about her.
right.
She does do the work. And she actually finds her way back to Bella and they get married again because she understood that it wasn't him, it was her. And he does love her.
Mm-hmm.
And she stopped relying on him to fill a void that no man or achievement could ever fill. She becomes a teacher. She's awarded Teacher of the Year in El Paso, and she considers going back to school to get a doctorate in psychology, but she isn't sure because she's talking to her principal and she's like, I don't know, because I'll be 50 by the time I'm done. And her principal tells her, well, you'll be 50 anyhow. Which I loved because how many times do we tell ourselves, oh no, because I can't go back to school. I'm this age, or like, I can't change my life.
Totally.
You're going to age anyhow. You might as well be moving forward in the direction you want to go.
Totally. I love that.
She writes, in the next 6 years, I discovered that there was no reason to limit myself, to let my age restrict my choices. I listened to what my life was asking of me. Again, just
amazing.
Opening yourself up. She writes about the various schools of thought. And I love this from Albert Ellis. To change our behavior, we must change our feelings. And to change our feelings, we change our thoughts. Yep. There are different school of thoughts within the therapy world, right? Do you pick like a track or do you just kind of take what works for you? Do you apply different things to different clients?
That's a great question. I had a specific specialty in my grad program, which was spiritual and depth psychology, which is studying more of the psychodynamic theories is what it's called. I would say it's like more deeper kind of work, like attachment stuff and trauma stuff and childhood stuff and, how that all connects. I think the best approach is just meeting a person where they are, collaborating with them together to decide what they need. I think it's just more like the human need in the room. That's the most important. Everybody wants to just feel like a human in the room, not like a
checklist.
Yeah.
She writes a lot, like the second half of her book, all these anecdotal experiences with various clients of hers, and we do not have time to get into them, but I highly recommend to our readers to check it out. But there are a couple of quotes that I do want to share about her job as a therapist. She writes, suffering is universal. Victimhood is optional. There is a difference between victimhood and victimization. Victimization comes from the outside. Victimhood comes from the inside. We become victims not because of what happens to us, but when we choose to hold on to our victimization. We become our own jailers when we choose the confines of the victim's mind. The word victim is being tossed around a lot these days. This is just a more empowering way to think of you have control over your life and the thoughts that you choose to think.
Totally. That really speaks to me as well.
Okay, here's another one. Why now? I asked. This was my secret weapon, the question I always ask my patients on a first visit. I need to know why they are activated to change. Why is today different from yesterday or last week or last year? Sometimes our pain pushes us. Sometimes our hope pulls us. Asking why now isn't just asking a question. It's asking everything. Do you ask your clients that?
Yeah, I do. I think not always, but yes, I think it's like a kind of moving question for some people because as the book kind of showed us, life is so unpredictable. Life is so dynamic. It's always changing. So it's so interesting to get a sense of like when someone is stepping into something new and like what brings them to do that for themselves. Because it's kind of scary.
Yeah. She talks about how she names her therapy choice therapy, which is very appropriate.
Yeah, nice.
It's about the freedom of choice. C, compassion. H, humor. O, optimism. I, intuition. C, curiosity. And E, self-expression. She writes about the various clients, like I said, that she encounters and the lessons that we can take away from them, and how by healing them, she learned to heal herself. She returns to Auschwitz, facing the horrors and trauma head on. And this is where we learn the other meaning behind the title of her memoir. This is the part of the book that made me sob harder than I have cried in a really, really long time. We learn, here we go. We learn that Edith is asked if her mother is her mother or her sister, and she responds truthfully, unknowingly dooming her mother to her death. Tries to take it back, but she can't. This is the moment that Edith replays in her mind. Consumed by the guilt of her choice, this is what she has to forgive herself for.
Wow.
She writes, to run away from the past or to fight against our present pain is to imprison ourselves. Freedom is in accepting what is and forgiving ourselves and opening our hearts to discover the miracles that exist now. And I'm going to read kind of a long one, but I think it's very important. So just bear with me. She writes, how easily a life can become a litany of guilt and regret, a song that keeps echoing with the same chorus, with the inability to forgive ourselves. How easily the life we didn't live becomes the only life we prize. How easily we cling to, worship the choices we think we could or should have made. Could I have saved my mother? Maybe. And I will live for all of the rest of my life with that possibility. And I can castigate myself for having made the wrong choice. Or I can accept that the more important choice is not the one I made when I was hungry and terrified, when we were surrounded by dogs and guns and uncertainty, when I was 16. It's the one I make now. The choice to accept myself as I am, human, imperfect, and the choice to be responsible for my own happiness, to forgive my flaws and reclaim my innocence, to stop asking why I deserve to survive, to function as well as I can, to commit myself to serve others, to do everything in my power to honor my parents, to see that they did not die in vain, to do my best in my limited capacity so future generations don't experience what I did, to be useful, to be used up, to survive and to thrive so I can use every moment to make the world a better place, and to finally stop running from the past. To do everything possible to redeem it and then let it go. I can make the choice that all of us can make. I can't ever change the past. But if there is a life I can save, it is mine. The one I am living right now, this precious moment.
What a beautiful soul.
I'm so appreciative for her heart and her spirit in writing this, because it could not have been easy to relive this part of her life and to relive it in such detail. She really goes into detail. I really feel like I am changed after reading this book, for the better, for sure.
Totally.
Her big message is we all have a choice, right?
Yeah.
She writes, our minds can imprison us or help us be free. And the most important truth I know is that the biggest prison is your own mind, and in your own pocket, you already hold the key. The willingness to take absolute responsibility for your life, the willingness to risk, the willingness to release yourself from judgment and reclaim your innocence, accepting and loving yourself for who you really are, human, imperfect, and whole.
It really just speaks to the journey that I think we all have to go on at some point in our life. Some of us delay it. Some of us, try to convince ourselves that the more, like how Edie did, the more degrees and the more accolades we get, the more we can fill that hole. And it's not, it's like, no, like us accepting ourselves, the self-acceptance piece is just the key to it all.
Yeah. But that key can be buried under piles and piles of dirt and painful things to think about. And so for some of us, that is just a lot of work. And a lot of us are in survival mode.
Totally.
Sometimes you don't have time to open up the closet and release the skeletons because you have to put food on the table for your children.
Totally.
But you are important and you are worthy of taking the time on yourself.
Even if it's not diving into a deep dive in therapy, but like even just in simple ways to start being kinder to yourself, telling yourself that it's okay that you made some mistakes. Like we all have, I mean, God, like Edie's mistake or whatever you want to call it at that moment that could have killed her mom or did kill her mom. What good is going to come of her punishing herself for the rest of her life, just the same way that we could choose to punish ourselves for our mistakes or not?
I know, I think you really hit the nail on the head. Why do we punish ourselves? I don't have the answer to that. It's just a question I'm thinking of right now.
I think one piece of it for me would be just like it gives us some feelings of control. Like if we beat ourselves up and if we punish ourselves and, are mean to ourselves, it gives us this feeling like we're in control and that this is the only way we'll get better is if we just beat up on ourselves, that kind of thing. I think just going into criticism and judgment of ourselves is such an easy path to go. And obviously our mental health suffers a lot as a result. But unpacking that the way that Edie finally did felt like she chose, or she saw that she didn't have to live with that. She was going to live with the pain, like you said it earlier, like you still live with the pain, but your relationship to the pain changes.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, Colette. Thank you for discussing and showing me this important and incredible, moving, transformative book. I like to end each episode with some memorable quotes that I didn't get to. There are too many in her book.
Yeah.
I mean, really, her book is full of so many little quick nuggets, little lines that you can repeat to yourself or write on your mirror or something, so that you see it every day. But I think this is an important one. So I want to end the episode with this. She writes, "There is no hierarchy of suffering. There's nothing that makes my pain worse or better than yours. No graph on which we can plot the relative importance of one sorrow versus another. People say to me, things in my life are pretty hard right now, but I have no right to complain. It's not Auschwitz. This kind of comparison can lead us to minimize or diminish our own suffering. Mm-hmm. Being a survivor, being a thriver requires absolute acceptance of what was and what is. If we discount our pain or punish ourselves for feeling lost or isolated or scared about the challenges in our lives, however insignificant these challenges seem to someone else, then we're still choosing to be victims. We're judging ourselves. I don't want you to hear my story and say, my own suffering is less significant. I want you to hear my story and say, if she can do it, then so can I."
Beautiful.
And that is what I wish for all the people in my life that I love. I wish for our listeners today.
Yeah.
I hope that everyone listening to this sees the empowerment of knowing that you have a choice in your life. Pick up this book and read it. If you haven't done so already, it will change you. It will break you open and you'll be put back together a little bit differently than when you started. It's an important story to tell. And just the added bonus of her also being a therapist and having all these little nuggets of wisdom.
Totally.
And I thank you for all of your nuggets of wisdom today, Colette. Thank you so much for talking with me today and sharing a piece of yourself with us.
Thank you for having me, Alex. And I really enjoyed this and the way you honored Edith's story and the story of, I think, a lot of people who went through this tragedy. Thank you. Thank you for that.
I love you.
Yeah. Love you.
Bye, Colette.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Babes in Bookland. To access the full version of this episode, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or support us on Patreon. Visit babesinbookland.com for more information.